Hey friends and fans, Christy from Happy and Healthy TV with you guys today. Filming a 100 Days of a Girl with Lyme documentary. We are on day 18. You guys are going to see me put out a lot of Lyme documentary videos in the next couple of weeks. May is Lyme Disease Awareness Month, so it is a very important month for us Lymies. And, certainly my job is to bring awareness to people who are not familiar with Lyme and or help others who have Lyme. So sometimes people ask me about my chalkboard wall that's above me before I get into our topic of convo today. It says I'm better than good, which is something I learned from one of my mentors. I like to use that as a response even when I don't feel well. And today is definitely one of those days. I don't like to complain. I like to go ahead and just put out positivity as much as I can. And, certainly being able to furnish videos like this is great. Underneath that, it says get up, eat, sleep, run. Obviously, I'm not allowed to run right now. Or half the time I'm not supposed to be doing it. I do it anyway. But that's kind of like my mantra in my head. It's just like eat, sleep, run. That's what happens when you're like an avid runner. So needed a little, wow, I can't speak today. Whoa. This has still got to be edited. This is what happens when Lyme attacks your brain. Need a little extra inspiration today. I got that out. Good job on my part. So I got my Rocky shirt on. And, just wanted to go ahead and just kind of explain, some of the stuff I have going on. So I'm obviously filming from my bed. You guys know I don't feel well if I'm hanging out in my bed and filming. I have not even blow dried my hair today. This is the day in the life of a Limey, basically. What things are a struggle for somebody with Lyme disease. And it's interesting, just talking to other people in Lyme support group forums, we kind of poop out pretty quickly. And for lack of a better term, just run out of energy, a lot of chronic fatigue issues and things like that. So, I'm happy on days where I can get laundry done. If I have enough energy, I'll cook several meals at once and make sure my son has got really, really good organic food put in the freezer. So as a nutritionist, thank God I've been trained on how to do that in a very, very good way. So, I always try to make multiple things. So this way there's plenty of healthy food always in the refrigerator. Bless my son's heart, he's 11 now, so he's pretty self-sufficient. We're teaching him how to cook a lot. Of course, a nutritionist me has been teaching him to cook since he was very small. So now he can obviously use the stove a little bit more and things like that. I don't have to worry about him blowing the house up, obviously with a lot of supervision. I certainly wouldn't leave him at this point to do this stuff. So today I wanted to talk about an article that came out in Newsweek. This is going to be our topic of convo today. Wow. This is just bad. Topic of convo today. You guys can just laugh at my grammar / speaking errors with things. Tell my brain is not at 100% functionality today. So this article came out in Newsweek, and the article is entitled "Untreatable Form of Lyme Disease Could Hit 2 Million Americans by 2020." Scientists are warning about this. I think this really needs to be brought into light, so I'm going to read this article for you, give me my comments. I'd love to get feedback on this from my fellow Lymies and other people who don't have Lyme, just kind of put that out there and see what's going on. So this article was written by Kamishra Gander, or Gander. I mess up words and can't read very well these days. So coming from an award-winning author, what happened to my brain? I need more fish oil. Anyway, let's go here. Excuse me. So scientists predict the number of people suffering from a little understood type of Lyme disease could spike to almost 2 million in 2020. From what I know from my Lyme family, that's a grossly underreported number, but, that's all right. 2 million people we're looking at. I presume there are many more. I'm going to say at least 10 million people from what I know suffer from this condition. The article goes on to say the most common vector-borne illness, in the U.S., Lyme disease is caused by the Borrelia burgdorferi bacterium, which is spread by infected ticks. Sufferers can have a fever, headache, chills, fatigue, joint and muscle ache, and swollen lymph nodes. In many cases, patients will experience an arrhythmia, migraines, rash that can grow up to 12 inches around the area of the tick bite. Around 329,000 cases are thought to occur each year, although the true number of infections is thought to be higher. Yeah, that's very true, because let me just break that article down right there. There are so many people that do not wind up with what we call an EM rash. I'm one of those people who never wound up with a rash from Lyme. It only occurs in about 30% of cases, actually, and that's research study cited by Dr. Richard Horowitz. So, if you're concerned about that. The other thing to consider is that we know that most Lyme testing, unfortunately, PCR testing for Lyme of fish tests, those types of things, only comes up positive about half of the time. So it's very well possible somebody could get a false negative and, still actually have it. So I want to say, so let's just say 329,000 cases are thought to occur each year. That number could be double or triple fold, maybe even quadruple based on the research I've done and the research that I've had from my Lyme team of people that we have put together right now that are doing research. So that's something to keep in mind. So you're talking potentially about 1 million people being infected a year, which is what I've seen in a lot of literature. So, go Newsweek for producing this article, but it goes on further to say, in most cases, doctors prescribe antibiotics and the symptoms pass. That did not happen to me. As you guys all know, I was not treated for my Lyme back in '07 when I got bit by 2 ticks on 2 separate occasions. However, for others, the symptoms can linger on in what is known as post-treatment Lyme disease. Wow, I'm like dyslexic, or not even dyslexic. This is like just skipping over words. Post-treatment Lyme disease, which is also known as PTLD, or post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome. Oh, I shouldn't be filming this right now. The condition is characterized by cognitive dysfunction. Hi, that's like so me right now. Incapacitating fatigue. Oh, we could talk about that for an hour. And chronic pain. Talk about that also for an hour. According to the authors of a study published in the journal BMC Public Health. I'm usually really good at reading stuff out loud. This condition is poorly understood. Forgive my language, no shit. There is no set diagnosis for it. And the treatment is controversial. The authors wrote, the cause is unknown. Some believe the bug can disrupt the immune system, for sure, based on the research I know, and can take months to recover. You're talking not just months. Most people, I see years. I've known people who have had Lyme for 30 years. Several people who have lived with Lyme for 20, 30, 40 plus years. It's crazy. Past estimates suggest treatments in between 10 to 20% of cases, which would cost the U.S. economy up to $1 billion per year. Let me just stop and comment on that. So I got sick back in 2011 originally, went back to work, skipped along back to my awesome jobs that I absolutely love so much. Thought nothing of it at the fact that I was starting to experience some very bizarre symptoms that were just out of character for me. But fortunately, I was able to keep things going up until I wound up with Lyme meningitis in 2013. As you guys all well know, I attempted to return back to work like 20 times. Fortunately, as a nutritionist, I still get calls from patients constantly. Thank God I have my colleague Renee Barbas, who I refer tons of patients to. I think I referred about 10 patients out to her just this week alone. So bless everybody's heart. I still get tons of calls from patients, former patients, new patients, and physicians that refer patients out to me. Rest assured, my patients are well taken care of. Certainly, I'd like to be taking care of them myself, but, as we all say, if a plane is going down, whose oxygen mask do you secure first, yours or your child's? You secure yours first, otherwise you cannot take care of your child. So just like in that analogy, I have to take care of myself before I can take care of others again. Though I do like to put out these videos and or support other people with Lyme at this time. So this way I'm still being of service to others. And of course it's helping me learn different things as I talk to the more people I speak to. Also helpful for my upcoming book, my 4th book that'll be coming out hopefully later on this year. We keep delaying the debut of that book due to some health concerns I have going on right now. Be that as it may, the article goes on to say, although antibiotic treatment cures most LD patients, don't really agree with that, but whatever, a significant proportion of patients continue to suffer persisting symptoms that can derail normal life. Yeah, just maybe a little bit. Un poquito, as we say in Italiano. The researchers wrote, it can therefore be tough to find accurate data on the prevalence of PTLD, which is also known as chronic Lyme. We in the Lyme world call that chronic Lyme. And diagnosis can involve ruling out other health problems. Now, again, if you are privy to Lyme, you know that Lyme can cause a myriad of different health conditions. My case is certainly an example of that. Just about anybody else I've talked to, example of that. Particularly like this article said, cognitive dysfunction is a big piece of it. We could talk about that in another video. For their study, the scientists drew on several pools of data to create a model to estimate the number of PTLD, or post-Lyme disease cases, or chronic Lyme cases that occurred between 2016 and 2020. This included data collected by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, so the CDC is actually collecting this, so I'm not really sure how accurate it is. Sorry, CDC. As well as past estimates of Lyme disease rates, survival rates, and examples of treatment failing. Remember, this is probably just referring to antibiotic treatment. It's not referring to complementary therapy, which, again, is controversial. I have some people who say complementary therapy works better for them. A combination of both complementary and antibiotic therapy works well for some people. So it's really, again, bioindividuality has to be respected here. It's on a case-by-case basis. I would presume this article is just speaking about strictly antibiotic therapy, and it does not list the type of antibiotics that they're using, which we know by Dr. Horowitz's research, pulsing antibiotics seems to be the best way to bust biofilm from most cases. Anyway, that's just going based on Dr. Horowitz's research. I'm kind of adding that in here. So, goes on to say, a conservative estimate made by researchers suggested that 69,011 cases of PTLD occurred in 2016, which will rise to 81,509 cases in 2020. In another model, the researchers accounted for cases rising from the 1980s, combined with treatment failing in 20% of cases. So Lyme was discovered back in 1982, which I find funny, sharing my age. That's the year I was born, so it's kind of weird that occurred in the year I was born. It's interesting to see that in the past, let's see, 80, 90, 2000s, 2010, almost 2020, 40 years, we haven't really made that much progress. The result was 1,523,869 cases in 2016 and 1,944,189 forecasts for 2020. This is crazy. A lot of people walking around with this, and again, grossly underreported due to the fact that testing is inaccurate unless you're doing something like an IGeneX test. So I wager to bet those numbers are much higher than what the CDC is reporting, but at least it's reporting some numbers. So if you want to look at the positive end of things, that's what we want to look at. The authors went on to further acknowledge that it remains unclear which is the most accurate estimation. Not surprised at that. Nevertheless, our findings suggest that there are large numbers of patients living with LD-related chronic illness, they wrote. Further, research is now needed to create tests to accurately diagnose and treat the condition. Yay! Somebody figured that out. Raise public awareness, we're working on that, my team and I, and arrive at a conclusion to figure out the number of sufferers. Yeah, we want to know how many people are suffering from this, absolutely. We know that in the Lyme world, this is definitely a pandemic. While ticks carrying the Lyme disease-causing bacteria can strike at any time of the year, April through September is the riskiest period of time. So we're in April now. I've already seen a tick in my bathroom. I keep my bathroom and my apartment extraordinarily clean, so I don't know where the little bugger came from. But they're so tiny, he could have made it through a crack on the screen. Needless to say, the tick is not alive. He has been now flushed down my toilet and is living in a plumbing system somewhere in a sewer, if he's still alive. The CDC advises avoiding grassy, bushy, or wooded areas where ticks can live, and treating clothing with 0.5%, what is this, permethrin, yeah, Dr. Horowitz actually recommends permethrin products, and the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, approved insect repellents before going into areas where bugs may lurk. So, of course, that's important. I always recommend if you're going into areas like that, again, I know it's hot in the summer, if you're wearing shorts, at least wear socks that are longer, that are white, so if the tick does wind up on you, you can see the tick very clearly. Certainly always check yourself for ticks, and yeah, the permethrin products, I would definitely spray like all over yourself. Avon Skin So Soft actually makes one that has been proven to kill ticks on contact if they land on you, that is safe for even someone who's pregnant to use, so it's considered a pretty safe product. So definitely check on Avon Skin So Soft for that. So that's basically the whole article here. What I'm going to go ahead and do is put this link for this article from Newsweek underneath the description below, so you guys can go ahead and read it yourself, since I've totally butchered the reading of this article. I mean, again, this is something to bring up too with cognitive deficits. it'd take me like 2 days to read like a 400-page book. I'm not even kidding. It's not that I'm speed reading. It's just I've always been very quick to read very well, and retain information very quickly and accurately. When I'm speaking now, certainly stuttering is a big issue for me, and missing certain words. So my pursuit and saccade, which are your eyes moving back and forth from the left to the right side of the page, and then going down to the next line. My eyes don't do that so well anymore, so they kind of jump and dart around all over the pages, which is interesting because I worked on that with my brain balance kids. We would test them and find part of the reason they had trouble reading was because they were not able to focus quite so well. And that's in part to do with muscle tone issues behind the eyes. So OPK programs are really good for that. You can download those on, um, an Android or an iPhone, or even I would presume a tablet or something like that, or a regular computer. And that's just helping the body to, or the eyes at least, to start focusing and getting the muscles, doing well on those, so you're able to read. Um, Interestingly enough, like I have that program on my phone. I try to use it, at least a few times a week. I really should be using it 2 to 3 times a day. But sometimes, it just escapes me to do that. But I do know that that can be helpful. So I can put the link to that OPK program. It's basically like lines growing across um, a screen where you're wanting to focus on those lines. But I mean, look, the good thing about all of these articles that have been coming up, and there's an article about Lyme, at least one or two every day in various different types of media. The Mighty, which is a great website, produces a lot of great information on Lyme and people surviving Lyme. Excuse me. And I find that to be a really great resource. Things like Newsweek. I've seen stuff on, ABC, on NBC. So there's been tons of articles. There's been a lot of newscasts recently on Lyme. So it's all over the place, which is great that the people are bringing up awareness to this. Thank God for that. Um, there will be a ton, again, of Lyme disease rallies coming up in December, or excuse me, wow, I'm growing all the way to the end of the year. We're nowhere near December. Um, Ton of Lyme disease rallies coming up for May, which I'm excited about. I'm trying to see if there's a way to virtually do a Lyme rally, because right now, physically, I can't get to one. I'm supposed to be on bed rest right now, but I keep kind of escaping and trying to get things done. Um, yeah, I'm not one to be sitting in bed. I keep trying to get things handled. Whatever the case is, so, if anybody knows anything about that in my Lyme support group world, please let me know. If not, please go out and show your support at DC, and let people know that this is something, whether you or a loved one are suffering, we're really going to try to make a big effort to go. I'd like to take my son to a rally. He's very, of course, with having his mom be affected by this, um, is very privy to this. As a matter of fact, we almost did his science fair project this year on Lyme disease, and just making awareness and what happens to somebody with this. It's really like a bio paper. It was very interesting. So I love the fact that he's interested in research on this as well, and wants to help other people not wind up with this. I'm very proud of him for that. He's got a very strong mind for science and bio, so I appreciate that very much from him. You'll hear me talk about my son a lot on videos, and part of that is because you're bedbound. I'm isolated often. Thank God that, I have wonderful friends and family that are constantly calling me. My phone does not stop ringing all day, thank goodness. So, plenty of people in my life that are around and absolutely supportive and there for me. But it's difficult when I know I can't get out and about certain days, but we do the best we can. Of course, as long as my son is well taken care of, which of course he is, that's my main goal. And as long as I can take care of myself and then, at least have somewhat of a normal existence, so to speak. I just don't believe in giving up, as you guys all know. And I think it's really important to continue this fight for people, just to bring up this awareness. Let's get the CDC to produce actual, real, concrete numbers. When they're talking about, again, producing testing that's more accurate, there is testing that's more accurate that's out there. It's through IGeneX Labs. There's another lab that is, the name of it is escaping me right now, that I know is used by some practitioners as well. So there are two labs right now, one that's in Palo Alto, California. There's one in another, actually, both of them are in Cali, which I find to be interesting. Um, I spent some time living in California back in 2015 and for my job, and I find that to be interesting only because I did meet a lot of people with Lyme there. Lyme there's a different form of Lyme in California. We'll see a lot of Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So, I mean, of course, as we talked about on previous videos, it's all over the country. but it's just different formats, different flavors and shapes of it. I did treat a patient years ago before I knew about Lyme and know nothing about it, who did have Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and she would come in with all these rashes, and she had a lot of food sensitivities, and she did struggle with her energy levels and things like that. So um, now knowing what I know, it's kind of that whole saying, if I knew then what I know now, which is actually a book I contributed to by Doreen Guma, so that the irony of that is kind of silly. But yeah, if I knew then what I know now, I could certainly help more people, which is interesting. What I found to be interesting as a practitioner and as a patient is that because there is no real clear-cut treatment protocol, it's very difficult to say what is appropriate for one person versus what is appropriate for next. So, this article, from what it's stating, it doesn't really go into depth. Really is, again, looking mostly at antibiotic treatment versus, looking at other stuff like ozone or IVC or phenylbutyrate I've seen used. There's a myriad of things as I talk to people in different countries who are being treated for Lyme. It also depends, it's depicted on if you have co-infections. This article says nothing about treating co-infections, and we know that a lot of ticks carry different types of other infections. What I do agree with this particular article is it's looking at overall immunity. I started off, before having Lyme, with having some significant autoimmune problems. And again, I know from being schooled in functional neuro so well, that is really having to do with something called functional disconnection syndrome in the brain, which is not only going to cause physical health problems, but also can cause emotional dysregulation problems, problems with the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, problems with the central nervous system. So the ANS and CNS are affected. So when you have a case that's gotten to that point, you're not only going to see physical problems, but you may also see mental health problems, diagnoses like autism, ADHD, ADD, PDD, NOS, really any type of behavioral disorder, really needs to, or neurobehavioral disorder, excuse me, should be going back and looked at, as Dr. Muller recommends. It's not on my shelf right now, it's on my shelf in my living room, but Dr. Muller's third book, Autism, he does recommend to look and screen for Lyme disease in children who have ADHD or Lyme. So I find that to be a very interesting phenomenon, and really something that needs to be looked at. If you take a look at a pandas case, which is strep bacteria that gets stuck in the brain, I used to work with Dr. Lynn Johnson, who is the head of the Pandas Foundation, back when I was still doing my corporate nutrition gig at Brain Balance. And one of the things that we found was that, these children were fine up until they wound up with strep bacteria that invaded the brain. It's no secret to me that, bacteria is bacteria. Of course, they're all going to do different things, play different roles. But when it pops up into the brain and it passes that blood-brain barrier, you're going to see some issues. And they may be in the form of anxiety. It may be in the form of depression. I've seen people that wind up with no psychiatric diagnosis at all, later with Lyme, then wind up with a psychiatric diagnosis. My case in particular, I've talked about this many times. I have frontal lobe damage from Lyme, so that can cause impulsive behavior, which I have to say, thank God, that's mostly in check at this point in my life. I've been able to do a lot of DBT, CBT, stuff like that to help get that under control. But of course, and also other stuff to strengthen the brain, whether it be exercise, which we know having strong core muscles and having a really good exercise regime can help with that. Being on bed rest, that's tough, but of course I still don't give up with that. I use free weights in bed, I do Pilates in bed, I do anything I can to make sure that my muscles remain strong. And if there are days where I just walk back and forth in my apartment, if I have to, I'll walk around my backyard. My son and I, thank God, were able to go bike riding for a little while yesterday, or the other day rather. For what I would normally be able to do, like a 6, 7, 8 mile run, no problem. I've run up to 20 miles in a clip at a time when I was in remission, which was amazing. It took me I want to say we took our time though. It took about 2.5 hours, which is crazy, on bikes, for me to do about a little over 2 miles. And I had to stop 6 times. Thank God my child is still patient. He's amazing. We just make fun out of the little pit stops that we make, as I call them. So, this article is great. I'm really glad that Newsweek is putting this out there. I'm glad that the CDC is finally saying, hey, there's, these numbers are being grossly underreported for Lyme patients. What is going on here? And let's come up with some more clear-cut treatment protocols, but there needs to be some sort of measures put in place for that. Having suffered from Crohn's disease for the majority of my life, I find that even though there are clear-cut treatment protocols for that. Obviously, that's why I was so busy doing what I was doing with patients with Crohn's and colitis and fill in the blankety-blank digestive problem. Yeah, there were clear-cut treatment protocols. There was research going on, but the research was more drug-oriented versus nutrition-oriented. If you guys have read my first book, you know that my research was nutrition-oriented versus drug-oriented. It was a little bit of both, but it was mostly, obviously as a nutritionist, it was primarily about nutrition. I still get letters from patients or readers that book has saved them in some way. I'm very humbled and thankful for that. Because I did spend most of my life suffering from that illness, in addition to going on to do about 10 years of clinical research on that, including seeing patients and doing case studies and such things that way. So my point to make with that is that, yes, there is a clear-cut treatment for Crohn's or colitis or any IBS type of issue or IBD issue. However, that doesn't mean that the person gets better. And again, that's why I wound up becoming so busy with what I was doing and why I still remain busy and still referring patients out. There are labs that have more reliable testing for things like that to look at other alternative causes as to why Crohn's would come up in a patient. So again, there's a lot of interesting factors that play a role here, guys. So keep a lookout for new articles on Lyme. I think for the next month, I'm really just going to be supporting or promoting rather Lyme awareness and different articles that are put out every day. I like to put these articles up because it just kind of gives us an idea. Hey, look, this is what's going on right now in the Lyme world. This is what people are doing. You know, at least to give people hope too that there are, even the CDC is like, this has become a problem. You guys know about our letter writing campaign that we have right now going on to the government to have the CDC actually push for this. So to see this article come out after we've been working on this for about 2 months, it is great. So obviously we're making a difference. We plan on continuing to do that. Anybody that wants to jump aboard that bandwagon, please let me know. I can definitely hook you up with some of the wonderful, amazing, intelligent people, caring people that I've been working with, just spread awareness, help others, and just really just do the best we can to take care of others. So that is my rant for today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. It was informative for you. And if so, please hit the subscribe button below. Hit the little bell next to it if you'd like to see when I have a new video that pops out. I try to do a video at least once a week when it's feasible, sometimes more if I'm able to. So any questions, please leave them below in the comment box, as I always ask for you guys to do. Comments are, of course, appreciated. Hope everybody is doing well today. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys, and take care. Love you guys. Bye.